The rains had not ceased in 6 moons, and the skies rumbled each late afternoon with a fury that rattled huts and spooked livestock. Children huddled beneath doorways, and elders watched the horizon for any sign of relief. Lightning spilled across the firmament in jagged streaks, illuminating the land with unnatural brilliance before submerging it back into darkness. Whispers began to spread through the villages that Wawanji, the mighty thunder god, was behind the relentless storms. Some said he was punishing humankind for harboring pride. Others believed he fought a hidden battle in the clouds with some ancient, nameless rival. Yet only a few had heard a far more astonishing rumor. Wawanji's heart was not in his chest, but concealed within a solitary tree, hidden in a place that even the boldest demon dared not tread. They said the thunder god's immortality depended on this distant heart. For as long as it remained safely far from mortal hands, his power would remain unrivaled. In the village of Mahandutiri dwelt a young hunter named Hazani, a wiry man with earnest eyes and nimble feet. Night after night he listened from his hut as thunder boomed. His neighbors murmured about dwindling food supplies. The fields flooded constantly, leaving few crops for harvest. Hazani's grandmother, a revered wise woman, took him aside one starlit morning during a rare lull in the thunder's fury. "My grandson," she said, her voice old but steady, "we cannot survive these storms much longer. You have the heart of a lion, and perhaps the gods favor you. I have a secret. Many years ago, in my youth, I fed a lost stranger at my door. He revealed certain truths about Wawanji." She paused, gauging her grandson's reaction. "That stranger told me that Wawanji keeps his heart far away to protect himself from any challenger. If we can find it, we might appeal to his mercy, or, if forced, destroy it and end his reign of thunder. But it is not an easy path." "Oh!" Hazani listened, perplexed. "Why would a god need to hide his heart? Is Wawanji so fearful that he cannot face us with his own soul intact?" The old woman shrugged, her shoulders hunched with the weight of memories. "Even gods can fear. He who holds the thunder does not want to be challenged. Let your arrow be guided by justice, not vengeance. This quest will demand all your resilience, not just of body, but of spirit." At dawn, Hazani bid farewell to his grandmother. Thunder grumbled in the distance, and the horizon shimmered with the constant threat of rainfall. He carried with him a bow of polished wood and a quiver of arrows fletched with bright feathers, a small knife for survival, and a talisman that belonged to his late father. The talisman was a carved stone shaped like an eagle's claw, his family's good luck charm. His aim was to travel beyond the farmland and the rolling hills to seek the rumored place known as the Valley of Broken Trees, a hidden region said to open only under the correct conjuration. There he hoped to discover the legendary tree that guarded Wawanja's heart. Along his journey, the muddy roads tested Hassani's balance. Oftentimes, he found himself slipping and sliding in the relentless wet earth. Frequently, lightning cracked open the sky, turning day into sudden flashes. During one particularly brutal squall, he found shelter beneath a leaning baobab. Beneath its thick trunk, he encountered an old wanderer dressed in tattered goatskin robes. Face lined by the elements, lightning etched their silhouettes onto the wet ground. "Share my shelter," the wanderer offered. "The thunder has a fierce appetite today." Grateful, Hazani sat beside the elder, exhausted from hours of trudging through mud and rain. The man studied the young hunter, noticing his bow and determined gaze. "Are you by chance pursuing some great purpose?" he asked, voice almost lost in the howling wind. "I seek the resting place of Waudane's heart," Hazani confided. "Do you know how I might find the Valley of Broken Trees?" He felt uncertain, revealing such a bold quest to a stranger, but a quiet sense of destiny guided him to speak. A wistful expression came over the old wanderer's face. "Many have sought that valley, but it is not found on any map. The storms themselves shape the path. I once came near it long ago, when I was strong like you. Let me tell you, The valley is rumored to be guarded by a spirit known as Ngonya, who takes the form of a hyena. A cunning beast. Should you prove yourself unworthy, it will devour your mind and lead you astray until you vanish in the shadows of that cursed land. Hazani's resolve, however, did not waver. I carry the blessings of my grandmother, he replied. I must end these storms or my people will starve. If Ngonya stands in my way, I will face that spirit. The old wanderer gave a laugh, a hollow sound amidst the thunder. Brave words. Follow the storm's trails. Wherever the lightning is fiercest, you must press on. Eventually you will come to a gorge with twisted, leafless trees. That is the threshold to the valley of broken trees. Few who enter return. Keep your eyes on the path. Do not stray from your mission, and perhaps the spirits will favor you. When dawn broke, Hazani bowed respectfully to the wanderer and ventured deeper into unknown terrain. Clouds clung low in the sky, swirling in bruised purples and greys. Lightning propelled him forward, as if the jagged flashes served as stepping stones guiding his steps. Days blurred into nights. Sleep was a fleeting rest beneath large boulders or inside hollow tree trunks that managed to survive the inundation. He subsisted on roots, dried meat from his pack, and water collected from the ceaseless raindrops rolling off giant leaves. Eventually he came upon the region that fit the wanderer's description. A wide gorge cut through the land, and on its edges stood a forest of twisted, barren trunks. They had once been enormous, majestic trees, but now they stretched up into the air like the gnarled hands of a dying giant. Splintered branches lay scattered, evidence of savage lightning strikes. The sky overhead seemed to swirl with pent-up fury, lightning branching through the clouds in every direction. Hazani noticed an opening between two massive, charred trunks. A gateway of sorts. Heart pounding, he entered the valley. The oppressive air felt thick with spiritual energy, and the smell of ozone clung to every breath. Wading through the ashen ground, he found footprints of no ordinary creature. Paw prints, but elongated and twisted, likely the mark of Ngonya. They wove deeper and deeper into the gloom. Thunder crashed, and the ashen branches danced in a manic frenzy, though no wind was present. Hazani saw flickers of movement on the periphery of his vision, but each time he turned, the shapes vanished, leaving only swirling ash. Suddenly, a guttural growl made him spin, bow at the ready. A creature emerged from behind a broken stump. Its fur was unearthly silver, stripes of black crisscrossing its flank. It resembled a large hyena, but its eyes glowed with an eerie red. Thick drool oozed from its jaws, sizzling as it touched the ground. The spirit Ngonya had arrived. Hazani held his breath. His grandmother's warnings whispered in his mind. Face the spirit with cunning and respect, but never show fear. Ngonya circled him, every step pressing large clawed paws into the ash. The beast's eyes flickered with intelligence beyond the mortal realm. Why does a mortal come to this graveyard of trees? Nungia's voice grated like the grinding of stones. I seek Wavanja's hidden heart, Hazani declared, carefully maintaining his composure. I want an end to these storms. Too many have suffered. The hyena spirit snorted, jaws twisting into a menacing grin. Mortals are so eager to meddle with divine matters. One does not simply pluck a god's heart from a tree and expect a peaceful resolution. Have you considered the consequences? Wawanji is no ordinary being. Remove his heart and you imperil the balance of the skies themselves. Hazani drew a tremulous breath. If there is a way to appeal for mercy, I shall do so. But if not, I must do what is necessary to save my people. He clutched his bow tighter, though he sensed that a direct attack on Ngonya would end poorly. Normanai's burning eyes bored into him. To walk further is to accept a trial. If you are found wanting, you will never return to the realm of men. Do you still wish to proceed? The thunder overhead roared, as if echoing the creature's challenge. Hazani felt the thunder reverberate inside his very bones. With every fiber of his being, he longed to place his people's welfare before his own. Summoning up all the courage in his chest, he nodded. Ngonya's lips curled back, revealing sharp, dripping teeth. "Then prove yourself worthy of entering the deeper valley. Only those with unwavering purpose can pass." With a swish of its tail, the spirit turned and bounded deeper into the twisted forest. Leaving a faint, luminescent trail along the ground, Hazani followed, breathing heavily, each step carrying him deeper into the gloom. He found himself replaying half-forgotten cautions from his grandmother. Illusions would test him. Fear and doubt would swirl around him like a vortex. He must cling to his purpose, remembering who he was and why he had embarked on this mission. The trail led him to a clearing surrounded by towering, blackened trunks. The bark appeared burned, yet a few skeletal branches still rose into the swirling skies. In the center of this clearing lay a circular stone dais, carved with ancient symbols. Ungona waited at the platform's edge, eyes glowing as lightning bolts crashed around them. Without warning, the symbols on the dais began to pulse. Threads of light wove upward, forming shimmering manifestations, phantoms in the shapes of men, women, and children. Their voices filled the air in a frantic howl. They wept, screamed, and pleaded for Hazani to abandon his quest. Their combined wails echoed off the charred trunks, pressing on his heart. He took a faltering step back. "What is this?" he gasped, eyes wide. Ngonya's laughter rumbled like distant thunder. "These are the tormented fragments, echoes of every mortal who came before you, each one convinced they could breach Wawanye's defenses. They all failed. Their spirits are trapped in illusions born of their own regrets. Do not look away, hunter. You must face what they could not." The ghosts circled Hazani, tugging at his arms, lamenting all they had lost. "Join us," they whispered. "It is hopeless. A mortal cannot vanquish a god's will. Our families suffered for nothing when we fell. Save yourself, go back." Their sorrow seared Hazani's ears, but he clenched his jaw, remembering his grandmother's words. "Let your arrow be guided by justice, not vengeance." He would not settle for turning away in despair. Everyone in Mondutiri depended on him. Slowly he thrust aside the phantom arms that clung to him, taking another step forward onto the dais. Inside, fear warred with resolve, but a quiet flame of determination refused to die. At his refusal to yield, the wailing illusions shrieked and imploded into sparks of electrified ash. The clearing was left silent, save for the crackling of lightning overhead. Genaya dipped its head, amusement dancing in its glowing eyes. "You do not cower. You may proceed. But the final threshold belongs to Wawanje himself. Once you find the tree that holds his heart, remember that you stand at the boundary between mortal defiance and a god's wrath." With that, the hyena spirit turned and dissolved into the swirling ash of the clearing, leaving Hazani alone. A narrow path opened at the edge of the forest, a corridor of black trees, whose boughs curved overhead. Despite the gloom, Hazani sensed that this was the final route. He walked onward. The path meandered between towering trunk after trunk. Some looked petrified, others half-burned, and the persistent rumble of thunder hammered in Hazani's ears until he could scarcely hear his own footfalls. Eventually, the corridor gave way to an enormous clearing, dominated by a single tree of monstrous proportions, both in height and girth. Its trunk was smooth, pale bark flecked with natural carvings that formed swirling patterns. The branches, though leafless, hummed with life. Whenever lightning sliced across the sky, the trunk shimmered as if reflecting heaven's fury. Hazani approached, awe constricting his throat. Could this truly be the place where a god's heart was hidden? Far above, precariously perched near the highest bough, a faint crimson glow pulsed like a living star. Immediately, Hazani sensed the unmistakable vibration of power that came from that glow. Blood pounded in his ears as the storm overhead intensified, as if Wawanji was aware of his presence. Thunder rattled the ground, and the swirling skies began to part. A voice boomed, filling every corner of the clearing. "Foolish mortal! How dare you approach my sanctuary? Turn away at once, or I shall strike you where you stand." Kazami's skin prickled, adrenaline pumping through his veins. He had expected this confrontation, but fear still wrapped icy tendrils around his heart. Yet he recalled his village under unrelenting rain, hungry children and uneasy elders. Summoning his courage, he shouted to the Stygian sky, "Wawanji, your storms are drowning the land, and your people suffer. I beg for mercy. End these unending rains so we may live." Another crash of lightning, forcing Hazani to shield his eyes. When the light receded, he stared upward into the swirling clouds. A massive figure wreathed in thunder descended. His skin glowed with energy, and arcs of electricity crackled around his broad shoulders. A helm shaped like a storm cloud sat upon his dreadlocked hair, and his eyes crackled white-blue. "Mercy," the thunder god roared, contempt etching each syllable. Humans are never satisfied. They pray for rain, but then curse its abundance. My realm is the storm, and I command when it shall begin and end. I will not bend to the whims of mortals. Leave or face the lightning's fury." Hazani held his ground. "I cannot leave empty-hand. If you will not relent, I must do what I must." He glanced up at the glowing red orb nestled high in the branches, a glimmer of raw divinity. "Let us not make this a senseless battle. Stand down, or I will claim your heart." A laugh as deep as the rolling sky burst from Wawanji. "Indeed, you dare threaten the storms themselves?" Thunder roared in unison, and a searing bolt of lightning slammed into the earth just feet from Hazani. Dirt and debris exploded in all directions, and Hazani staggered backward. Another bolt struck the tree trunk, but the pulsing captive heart above seemed unaffected. The trunk seemed to channel the energy harmlessly. Gritting his teeth, Hazani realized he had to scale the bark to reach that orb. Only by taking possession of the heart could Wawanye be checkmated. Yet climbing a tree under relentless lightning would require a nearly impossible feat of courage and dexterity. "Very well," he whispered to himself. "Now or never." A swirl of wind battered him, and sheets of rain whipped at his face, but he dashed forward and seized the tree trunk. He hoisted himself up carefully, finding footholds in narrow notches and cracks. The bark was strangely smooth in places, but occasionally gave just enough purchase for his fingers. Every time lightning flashed, the entire trunk vibrated, making him cling onto it tighter lest he fall. Above, Wawanje bellowed, "Cease, mortal, or I will turn your bones to cinders." Lightning cascaded around the trunk, scorching holes in the ground and leaving swirling smoke. Rain soaked Hazani's clothes, making the climb dangerously slick. High up, the branches spread, gnarled and thick as pillars. The glow of the heart pulsed brighter, an ember in a swirl of powdered starlight. Hazani inched along a thick bough, focusing all his will on not slipping. Thunder made his teeth rattle, and the rancid smell of ozone hung in the air. Steadily, he edged closer, ignoring the furious roars of the thunder god. Suddenly, a bolt sizzled past Hazani, striking the limb in front of his face. Chips of bark exploded, swirling in the gale. He lost his grip on the branch and felt his body slip, heart lurching into his throat. At the last moment, he grabbed a twisted protrusion jutting from the trunk. Gasping, he hauled himself upward again. His mind reeled from fear, but he would not yield. After a few more precarious feet, he finally came within reach of the crimson glow. The orb nestling amid the thick branches glistened like the most flawless ruby. And yet, it seemed alive. Hazani could feel it thrum in time with the lightning overhead. His entire body prickled, as if an electric current surged through him. Summoning every last drop of courage, he wrapped his hand around the orb. It was warm, and the surface felt as though it were gently pulsating. In that moment, the storm paused, as if time itself held its breath. From below, an outraged cry erupted. "No! How dare you! Rwanji hurled a massive lightning bolt at the trunk, which tore through bark and sent scorching splinters into the air. The tree groaned, and the limbs shuddered violently. Hazani almost lost his balance again, but he clung hard to the trunk. With his free hand he drew the small knife from his waist. He glanced at the orb, feeling the pulsing beat reverberate all the way into his own chest. This was Walan's heart, the source of his unchallenged power. "Stop!" pleaded the Thunder God, his voice unexpectedly tinged with desperation. "Do you realize what you hold? Without my heart, the storms will rage out of control or vanish into drought. There is a balance mortals do not comprehend. Return it, and I will listen to your pleas." Hazani hesitated. He knew that destroying or removing a god's heart might bring unpredictable havoc, but the unending storms had already brought chaos. He swallowed hard. "Then show us your mercy. End the floods. Swear that you will allow the lands to flourish. We do not wish to kill you, only to save ourselves. Promise that you will hear our prayers and understand our plight." "Never!" spat Wawanj, lightning radiating around his form. "Mortals must be taught fear. That is how they remember to respect the divine. Suffer the storms, or suffer my wrath. I will not be tamed." Hazani looked down. The god's defiance filled him with dismay, but he also perceived fear in Wawanje's eyes. A god who had guarded his heart this carefully might also dread mortality. In that moment, Hazani made a choice. Gritting his teeth, he pressed the knife's edge into the pulsating orb, carving a shallow groove. A bright stream of energy seeped from the wound, and an agonized roar filled the sky. Lightning arced wildly across the clearing, and Wawanje sank to one knee, as if tethered to the orb in Hazani's grasp. The swirling air thickened, crackling with raging power. Knowing that the next bolt could incinerate him or the entire tree in an instant, Hazani steadied himself and called out, "I do not want to kill you, but you give me no choice. Relent, or I will carve deeper. End the storms, or sacrifice your immortality." Rain hammered the leaves in a torrential downpour. The Thunder God's eyes narrowed, flickers of lightning dancing across his features. For a long moment, nothing but the roar of the storm filled the clearing. Then Wabonja lowered his gaze, pain and fury mingling across his face. The winds that whipped through the valley began to subside. "Do not destroy it," he finally uttered, voice hoarse. "I will grant you a reprieve. I shall call back the storms. Disperse these clouds that have drowned your harvests, you mortals. You always push the boundaries. But I yield, so that the cosmic order will not unravel from your impulsive act." Relief flooded Hazani's chest, though he remained tense. Slowly he removed the knife from the orb, half expecting the Thunder God to strike, but Wawanji merely trembled, struggling to maintain his composure. The lightning in the clouds dimmed, thunder mellowed to a low rumble, and the torrential rain tapered off to a soft drizzle. Gradually the swirling clouds parted to reveal slivers of a golden sky. For the first time in half a year, warmth touched the land. Hazani cradled the orb. It flashed with an inner brilliance, an unspoken reflection of the Thunder God's subdued defiance. "Swear by your own name," Hazani said quietly, "that the storms will remain at peace. Let them come only when needed, not out of fury or pride." Wawanje lifted his head. The swirling storm around them had begun to vanish, as if a cloak had dropped, revealing a calmer sky. "I will keep the storms in balance," he said, each word echoing like a promise steeped in ancient power. "Henceforth I will recall the floods, and let the sun rain when it must. But do not delve into matters beyond your mortal understanding again. I have conceded this once." Hazani glanced at the orb, then lowered it toward the trunk. "I trust you remember that I hold your life in my hands." Wabonja let out a relieved sigh as the pulsing steadied. The Thunder God averted his gaze, Go, mortal, return to your village while the path remains open. If I find you tampering here again, I will not be so lenient." Descending from the tree proved as harrowing as climbing it. Hazani's fingers shook, knuckles raw from clinging to the bark. He finally reached the ground, dropping to his knees. The rainfall had lessened to a gentle patter, soaking his hair and face. Golden beams of sunlight broke through, and in that light the valley of broken trees appeared less ominous. Ashen trunks still stood like silent witnesses, but the raging winds no longer whipped them in a frenzy. When Hazani gazed up at the tree, Waiwanje had vanished. All that remained was the towering trunk with the faint, pulsing glow near its summit. Silence reigned. Gathering himself, Hazani found the exit path. He paused only once to glance back, as if uncertain whether the entire moment had been a waking dream. The footprints of Ngonya were nowhere to be seen, though Hazani felt the spirit's presence, watchful and cunning in the periphery of the forest. He bowed his head in gratitude, for he believed Ngonya had allowed him to prevail. With each step returning through the twisted trunks, the dryness of the earth increased. The drizzle overhead soon stopped, and the slab-grey clouds shifted fully into a calmer hue. By the time Hazani left the gorge, the raging storm had withdrawn. A gentle sun spilled across the grasslands, and the hush of the land after so many months of pounding rain felt like a divine blessing. Upon reaching the outskirts of Mahandutiri, Hazani found villagers emerging from their huts in wonder. Children splashed in shallow pools, perplexed to see the rains subside for the first time in half a year. Women ventured into the fields, marveling at how the sky showed promise of dryness and clarity. Elders touched the soil, testing its moisture, finding it no longer an endless river of mud. Exhausted and trembling, Hazani fell to his knees in the center of the village. His grandmother hurried to his side, her face etched with concern and relief. "My child, you have returned. The rain is ending. Did you confront him?" He nodded weakly, managing a smile. "Yes, grandmother. A tenuous accord, you might call it." Waiwanje relented, at least for now. "I was able to—" He hesitated, not wanting to burden her with the memory of carving open the god's heart. "I was able to make him see our suffering. So the storms shall recede." She cupped his hands, her eyes shining. "You have done what no one else dared. You risked everything to save us, and now we can hope to plant anew." As villagers gathered around, Hazani recounted his journey in broad strokes, leaving out the most harrowing details. He simply said he found the hidden heart, threatened to destroy it, and forced Waiwanje to relent. A hush fell among them, a reverent acceptance of the near-mythic event that had just unfolded. A few wept with relief. Others whispered prayers of thanks to whichever spirits or gods would listen. Life and hope slowly returned to Mahandutiri, though Hazani did not know what might come in future seasons, whether Waiwanje's vow would hold, or if the thunder god's wrath might one day flare again. He had accomplished his mission. He had seized the power of a god, and shown that even the greatest could be humbled. And in that final moment beneath the clearing sky, he realized something else. In facing the fury of the heavens, he had learned that a mortal's courage lies in the heart's capacity to love, to protect, and to persist. That was a power no divine thunderbolt could quell. So ended the season of endless rain, replaced by the patient promise of sunrise and dusk, of seeds sprouting in moist fields, and of a village free, at least for a time, from fear of the raging storm. And though Waiwanje's heart still pulsed within that hidden tree, mortals now knew that, if unity and courage called for it, even the thunder itself could be challenged.